Greetings for Liberty University History 701. I am bundled up and coming to you from a freezing cold junior rodeo. I'm in the pickup because if I was outside, you could hear the announcer and the horses and some cows and parents yelling at children and sometimes children yelling at parents and dogs barking and the whole thing. So I'm in the pickup. Okay, so this time we were to study 2 dissertations and then discuss their sources and their methods. And I picked dissertations dealing with the field of intelligence. I became interested in it, especially after reading Brian Kilmeade's book, George Washington's Secret 6, where he talks about George Washington's use of intelligence in the Revolutionary War. And I thought it was so interesting because as one of my dissertations is titled, intelligence is often called espionage, which sounds sort of, maybe sort of dirty, dark, and secretive. And George Washington, is touted for his integrity and goodness, but also his strategy and use of covert intelligence was very strategic. So anyway, I've chosen 2 dissertations. They both have to do with intelligence. The first one is titled Religion and Espionage. It's 5 Theories of Intelligence by Lewis Harris West, and he wrote it in 2020. It's really interesting. It's 317 pages total with the sources. And he talks about that one thing that was very helpful to him was to discuss the sources he was using or thinking of using with his fellow students, and also would get suggestions on sources from fellow students. In his method, he gives explanations. Like one explanation he gives that was interesting is the double cross system, which the Germans used in World War II, where they would recruit citizens of Britain living within Britain to spy for the Nazis. He also talks about that his method is he's going to use religion and science, and it's those scholars who work on the boundary between religion and science who take science and religions as their analytical object and provide the clearest model for how he plans to proceed. So he sort of explains his method. It was really interesting. He had 24 pages of sources. Among his primary sources, he had 4 pages of primary sources, and among them he had newspapers listed, which was interesting. But what was most striking is he just has the name of the paper, not like where to find it, the internet address, anything. And since his dissertation was written in 2020, I found that kind of interesting. You think you would have something written there. The other dissertation that I used is Finding Purpose, United States Strategic Military Organizations from 1882 to 1947. This is written by Scott Allen Mosman. It's 442 pages. It's written in 2021. Something that I found so interesting is on the cover page, he lists his educational background, and he has a master's of science from the Joint Military College, and I didn't know what that was. So I looked it up, and it was established in 1962 by the Department of Defense, and Mr. Mosman, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, is retired Navy. So it was very interesting to learn that. He talks about that the National Archives are where he found the bulk of his primary sources. And that's interesting from an online education perspective because that to me indicates that I might need to go there in person because it probably is a great place for sources. Let's see, he has 11 pages of primary sources, and he includes newspapers too, but has some location information for where to find them. And then he in his primary sources, he lists movies and novels. And I found that really interesting because I would think a novel would be a secondary source, but his secondary sources include government publications, and I really thought that would be more of a primary source. So that was a very, very interesting, the sources were the most interesting part, I thought. He explains terms, like he uses the word information as unevaluated data rather than how we would normally perceive the word information. He organizes his dissertation into chapters, and he doesn't really have like a formal conclusion section. It's chapter 10, and then it's the bibliography. So it was very interesting to look through those dissertations and a great learning experience as I prepare to do my own. Thank you.